Afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome our lecturer, whom I'm going to introduce shortly. That's Her Excellency, Professor Cesar Anyang, the Honourable Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology at the African Union Commission. I also want to welcome our distinguished faculty from the various CARTA partner institutions. I am also noticing here that there are attendees from the Pan-African University, which is one of the agencies under the office of the Honourable Commissioner, who is a distinguished lecturer this afternoon, this evening. The Consortium for Advanced Research Training in Africa has been in existence for more than 10 years now. I think we celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. And it is a consortium of various African universities, I think from 7 African countries, research institutes, and also non-African partner institutions from Europe, from North America, from South America, and we once had one of our partners actually from Australia. So the consortium is a global enterprise, and the consortium is devoted towards improving academic activities in higher educational institutions in Africa, particularly research and research training, postgraduate training. And we hold a number of activities every year in pursuance of the objectives of the consortium. One of our biggest programs is the doctoral fellowship program, where we sponsor and support graduate students in partner universities until they complete their doctorate degrees. And we then continue to follow them up in their postdoctoral development until they become full-fledged academics and academic leaders that can train others and bring them up. And the main supportive activities we have for our doctoral fellows are the joint advanced seminars, which are spread throughout most of the period of their doctoral training. And JAS 3 is the joint advanced seminar 3, is the third in the series of 4 seminars that we hold. And one of the important events of JAS 3 is the annual public lecture, the 8th of which is taking place today. The first lecture was delivered at the first JAS 3 by the then president of the Nigerian Academy of Science. And after that, we have had 6 other lecturers. So today, we are welcoming our 8th distinguished lecturer, Professor Cesar Anyang, Agbor, the Commissioner for Human Resources, Sciences, Technology in the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You are very welcome, Your Excellency, and the members of your entourage. Professor Cesar Anyang Agbor, I think a picture is displayed there, but I'm sure you'll see her in person shortly, at least via video link. And Professor Cesar Anyang Agbor is the African Union Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology since 2017. And her brief consists of education, youth and capacity development, and science and technology. Professor Anyang Agbor is a distinguished alumna of the University of Ibadan, and I can say that proudly because we share that in common. She obtained a PhD in English literature from the University of Ibadan nearly 25 years ago. And since then, she has excelled as a scholar and diplomat. She's a professor of African and Commonwealth literature. Before becoming the commissioner, she was the deputy vice chancellor in charge of research, cooperation, and relations with business world, DVCRCB, at the University of Bamenda in the Northwest region of Cameroon. As DVCRCB, she promoted research, efficiently and effectively managed the university's educational and research programs, as well as overseeing initiatives and action plans in the university's research strategic planning. Professor Agbor is a distinguished diplomat. She's also a wife and a mother. And it's my honor and pleasure to welcome her to deliver the 8th annual CARTA public lecture. Your Excellency, you're welcome.
Greatest UI.
Great.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Akinyinka Omigbodu. Distinguished faculty from partner CARTA institutions, esteemed education, STI stakeholders from across the globe, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am humbled and honored to attend the CARTA and the University of Ibadan joint advanced seminar 3, 8 public lecture, and to speak on the theme, Science, Technology and Innovation, the catalyst for development of the Africa we want. In these unprecedented times we find ourselves as the Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology at the African Union Commission. Over the last 3.5 years, I have provided stewardship in putting in place a robust continental normative framework on science, technology, and innovation, including the Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy for Africa, which we commonly call Cesar 2024, and the African Space Policy and Strategy. Distinguished members of the Ivory Tower, esteemed participants, I am kind of weary to stand before you great researchers and esteemed scientists in STI, because my background, as you heard from Professor Akinyinka, is that I'm a scientist from the Faculty of Arts and Letters of the University of Ibadan. In the plenary of the Congress, we take political decisions and do advocacy, but today we are getting into the nitty-gritty of scientific technicalities. I believe that science, technology, and innovation are the catalysts for the development of the Africa we want. Science, technology, and innovation were at the heart of the first industrial revolution in the 18th century through key invention and innovation that triggered the transformation of agrarian societies into industrialized ones in Europe and in the United States. My lens in this lecture will take an Afrocentric approach, consolidating on the African Union engagement with science, technology, and innovation, as well as R&D for the transformation of the Africa we want, as discussed in Agenda 2063. I believe that science must be functional to the society and respond to the urgent needs of the people. Therefore, government, stakeholders, and the powers that be must put in place specific policies and programs in science, technology, and innovation that address societal needs in a holistic and sustainable way. President Kwame Nkrumah, in his first speech at the Foundation Summit of the Organization of the African Unity at Addis Ababa on the 24th of May, 1963, states, "We shall accumulate machinery and establish steelworks, iron foundries, and factories. We shall link the various states of our continent with communication. We shall astound the world with our hydroelectric power. We shall drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and disease. It is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial developments. This is a statement of our founding father, His Excellency Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, in 1963, almost 37, 21, 54 years ago. Africa is facing several pressing issues, including poverty, inequities, illiteracy, conflicts, environmental degradation, infectious and non-infectious diseases, food and nutrition insecurity, natural and human-induced disasters that continue to undermine its development. COVID-19 has exposed and further weakened the already weak social and economic systems and risk reversing gains made over the last decade. Economic growth is not keeping up population growth and unmet needs, reinforcing the need to act innovatively and with speed and at scale. Agenda 2063 and the 7 interlinked and mutually reinforcing aspirations that set the vision and agenda for Africa development are even more relevant for continent's development than they have ever been. The 7 aspirations of Agenda 2063, which is the vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own competent and skilled citizens, has 7 aspirations. Aspiration 1 is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Aspiration 2, an integrated continent, politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of Africa's Renaissance. Aspiration 3, an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. Aspiration 4, a peaceful and secure Africa. Aspiration 5, an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. Aspiration 6, an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. And then aspiration 7, Africa as a strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and partner. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I submit that all these aspirations can only be achieved if education, science, technology, and innovation is consolidated. Education, science, and technology and innovation are central, providing the requisite human, technological, and institutional capital for Africa's development. Without innovation, it will be impossible for Africa to accelerate and transform its social and economic systems. The African Union Commission exists to assist the 55 African Union member states to come together to establish an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. The creation of African Union also identified and established the Department of Human Resources, Science and Technology as one of the 8 technical departments of the African Union Commission with the mandate to advance education, science and technology, and human capital development in the continent. The African Union Commission established a conference of ministers in charge of science and technology to enable the Union to periodically deliberate and have a collective voice on science and technology issues. The first summit of AMCOS was in Maputo, Mozambique in July 2003, and the Consolidated Plan of Action was presented in 2005 as an instrument for the implementation of the decisions of the African Union head of state and government on science, technology, and innovation, and endorsed for immediate implementation in 2006 at the Khartoum Summit of the African Heads of States. AMCOS finally changed to the STCEST, that is the Specialized Technical Committee on Education and Technology. What was the Consolidated Plan of Action, the CPA? The CPA was approved, and I'm quoting, to be implemented to address the following clustered key flagship research and development programs. Cluster 1, biodiversity, biotechnology, and indigenous knowledge, including 1, conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. 2, safe development and application of biotechnology. And 3, securing and using Africa's indigenous knowledge base. This is very important, particularly with COVID-19, where we need to go back home and look at our African pharmacopoeia in order to give response to some of the symptoms that we see. Cluster 2, energy, water, and desertification, including 1, building a sustainable energy base. We are still lacking in that. 2, securing and sustaining water, potable water. 3, and combating drought and desertification. Cluster 3, material sciences, manufacturing, laser, and post-harvest technologies, including 1, building Africa's capacity for material sciences. 2, building engineering capacity for manufacturing. 3, strengthening the African Laser Center. And 4, technologies to reduce post-harvest food loss. Cluster 4, information and communication technologies, including 1, information and communication technologies, and 2, establishing the African Institute of Space Science, and 5, which is Cluster 5, mathematical sciences, including the Next Einstein Initiative. There is no argument, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that science, technology, and innovation are important drivers of African integration. Today, as the world embraces the 4th industrial revolution, driven by frontier technologies, fed by artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum computing, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, digitalization, genetic engineering, etc., STI has become even more important for the competitiveness of nations. This justifies the general cross-cutting nature of STI for all the Sustainable Development Goals, and the fact that STI stand on their own as specific targets in individual SDGs, such as SDG number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. For instance, the SDG 9 targets such as enhance scientific research, upgrade the technological capabilities of industrial sectors, encourage innovation, and increase critical mass and R&D expenditures, which is target 9.5, support domestic technology development and research and innovation in developing countries, and improve the related STI policies, that is target 9B, increase access to information and communication technology, target 9C, show that the 2030 agenda for sustainable development is underpinned by STI. Agenda 2063, a plan for Africa's structural transformation, as agreed upon by the African Union Golden Jubilee of May 2013, is a vision to build an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, an Africa driven and managed by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena as their overarching guide for the future of the continent. The African Union Agenda 2063, which is Africa's framework for inclusive and sustainable development for the next 40 years plus, recognizes that Africa's progress towards the achievement of the SDGs and beyond, and the socio-economic and environmental transformations of Africa are highly linked to the development and the deployment of its STI capabilities. Therefore, the aspirations of the Agenda 2063 specifically call for a revolution in education and skills based on STI for the creation of knowledge economies in Africa. That is why I said that the STI is the catalyst that can help us transform the Africa that we want. The slogan of the Africa Strategy for STI, which is the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa 2024. You might be wondering why we say Cesar 2024. The AU Agenda 2063 is a 50-year plan, the blueprint of the Africa we want, divided into 5 phases. Each phase is 10 years. And in the first 10 years, we have this Cesar 2024. So the slogan of the Africa Strategy for STI, on the wing of innovation, that is what we call it, on the wing of innovation, promoted by the African Union Commission and led by the Human Resources, Science and Technology Department, this department that will henceforth become the Department for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, as from 2021, in the ongoing new reform, highlights the great emphasis put on innovation in the Agenda 2063 to support sustainable development in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the African Union launch of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, represents the vision of the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of a transformed Africa. It is the blueprint of the Africa we want, a 50-year strategy for the development of Africa. Significantly, Agenda 2063 came before the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. It must be mentioned that its alignment with the SDG has provided an impetus for a range of developmental activities across the continent over the last 5 years. This has included the development of the first of a series of a 10-year science, technology, and innovation strategies for Africa. In June 2014, the 23rd Ordinary Session of the African Union Heads of State and Government submit and adopted a 10-year science, technology, and innovation strategy for Africa. This strategy is part of the long-term people-centered African Union Agenda 2063, which is underpinned by science, technology, and innovation as a multifunction tools and enablers for achieving continental development goals. It becomes imperative for Africa to harvest its population demographic dividend, especially the women and youth whose energy, creativity, and courage must drive its development agenda. With the advent of Cesar 2024, the African Union possesses a wonderful tool to accelerate Africa's sustainable development. Moreover, the mission of Cesar 2024 is to, and I quote, accelerate Africa's transition to an innovation-led, knowledge-based economy, the third phase of development. If effectively implemented, Cesar 2024 could play a substantive role in meeting the aspirations and goals outlined in Agenda 2063. Distinguished participants, it must be noted that the African Union Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy for Africa places science, technology, and innovation at the epicenter of Africa's socio-economic development and growth. The Cesar 2024 10-year strategy is to respond to the demand for science, technology, and innovation in order to impact across critical sectors such as agriculture, energy, environment, health, infrastructure development, mining, security, and water, among others. This strategy is firmly anchored on 6 distinct priority areas that contribute to the achievements of the African Union vision. They are 1, priority 1, eradication of hunger and achieving food security. Priority 2, prevention and control of diseases like the type we have now, the COVID pandemic. Priority 3, communication, physical and intellectual mobility. Priority 4, protection of our space. Priority 5, live together, build the society, and priority 6, wealth creation. There are 4 mutually reinforcing pillars which are prerequisite conditions for the success of the strategy. These pillars are 1, building and upgrading research infrastructures. 2, enhancing professional and technical competence. 3, promoting entrepreneurship and innovation. And 4, providing an enabling environment for STI development in the African continent. If these 4 pillars are reinforced and implemented by the various member states, then definitely science, technology, and innovation will become the catalyst for development of the Africa we want. The implementation of Cesar 2024 takes place at 3 levels: national level, regional, and continental levels. At the national level, member states are to incorporate this strategy into their national development plans. At the regional level, regional economic communities, regional research institutions, networks, and partners, such as you, are to leverage the strategy in designing and coordinating initiatives. At the continental level, the African Union Commission, the NEPAD agency, and their partners advocate and created awareness, mobilize necessary institutional, human, and financial resources, track progress, and monitor. Continental, regional, and national programs have been designed, implemented, and synchronized to ensure that their strategic orientations and pillars are mutually reinforcing and achieve the envisaged developmental impact as effectively as possible. The Africa we want can only be realized if we consolidate on education, science, and technology. If we speak agriculture, it is science and technology. If we speak potable water, nutrition, it is science and technology. If we speak climate change, blue economy, energy, digitalization, it is science and technology. If we speak of good roads, transportation, it is science and technology. When we speak pharmaceutical products, medicinal plants, conversion of our African pharmacopoeia, health, and the mitigation of diseases and pandemics, it is science and technology. Hear me and hear me well. All these areas of life and the various sciences, as I would, in my naivety put it, are acquired through education. Education is a solid foundation for all the transformation we want. So where are we in Africa as concerned our development and Cesar 2024 agenda? The African Union decided to create an enabling environment for STI. There has been substantial effort and achievement by the African Union and its member states over the past 5 years in establishing critical institutions that can support an enabling environment for STI on the continent. These include: 1, the African Scientific Research and Innovation Council, AUSTI. 2, the African Observatory for Science, Technology, and Innovation. 3, Pan-African Intellectual Property Organization. Many of our researchers are losing in the world market because they don't own intellectual property of their innovations. Why? We don't have money. To innovate is to have money. To do research is to have money. Now, when you partner with foreign bodies, they come in, steal your innovations, and take it away, and you don't have the IP for it. And at the end of the day, you cannot even get the wealth creation that this science is supposed to produce for you. 4, Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework. 5, African Centers for Disease Control, the African Union CDC, which has done a good job with the eradication of Ebola and now fighting and trying to find means of mitigating COVID-19. 6, the Committee of 10 Heads of States and Governments, the CTED, championing education, science, and technology. And then 7, Africa Virtual and E-Learning University. And 8, the Pan-African Private Sector Trade and Investment Committee. Several important continental strategies and policies have been established to fast-track STI on the continent. In addition to Cesar 2024, we have the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, which has been developed. I quote, "There have also been significant advances made towards the establishment of a continental free trade area with the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFTA will have a profound impact on STI and associated entrepreneurship and industrialization. The establishment of an African space policy is also a particularly noteworthy development as a driver for STI on the continent, particularly in the area of the physical sciences, information technology, engineering, and mathematics. But the question is, why is our progress in attaining these standards, walking the talk of implementation, and going beyond rhetoric so slow in Africa? Why is it that changes are not seen in the rapid way we expect to see it if we already have these strategies put in place? It is because we have not invested the right kind of partnership and created synergies to effect change. Education, curriculum review, building of technological transfer offices, building of partnership, and African governments demonstrating ownership to projects must take the pride of place for STI to change and become the catalyst for the development of the Africa we want. The COVID-19 has changed the narrative of things and has acted as a springboard to a re-evaluation of the place of STI in government policies and strategies, even in the implementation of necessary infrastructures. COVID-19 brought about a lockdown for some length of time where we needed to depend on our own African infrastructures and health systems. For those who had money to be able to travel to Germany, to Geneva, to Swiss, to London, America for treatment, the borders were closed, and many of them now suffered consequently from there. We needed to do business as unusual. Significantly, John N. Nkengasong and Sophanios K. Tesema informed, the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic has revealed that Africa needs a new public health order to be resilient, to adapt, and to cope with 21st century disease threats. The new order will need strengthened continental and national public health institutions, local manufacturing of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, attraction, training, and retention of a public health workforce, and fostering of respectful local and international partnership. Moreover, health as a development issue continues to have a significant impact on the economic and social security of countries and regions across Africa. The global responses to the current COVID-19 pandemic facing the world have clearly reminded us that nations will survive the next waves of natural disasters of such an amplitude or more, and nations driven by science, technology, and innovation. For example, vaccines usually take years to be developed before reaching the testing stages. In this case, however, just 1 year of accelerated and outstanding scientific research on COVID-19 has put more than 100 candidate vaccines in clinical or preclinical trials, according to the World Health Organization tracker of COVID vaccine candidates. How many were Africans? Millions of people are being already vaccinated worldwide with approved vaccines. The leading vaccine developers are countries that are positioned regularly high in the Global Innovation Index ranking, with high research intensity, 0% GDP spending on R&D, and above the average critical mass, number of researchers and R&D personnel per million inhabitants, and the necessary research infrastructure and research administration. Such is the power of mastering STI for a nation. We need to wake up here in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic was compounded this month, February 2021, in Africa by new outbreaks of the Ebola viral disease in DR Congo and in Guinea. The World Health Organization and partners are stockpiling Ebola vaccines that are stored outside Africa, from where the vaccine will be dispatched after the WHO and partners receive requests from countries. The question is, when and how Africa will be able to make those types of vaccines, like for COVID and Ebola, by itself, or at least participate in the global research at a level that warrants the acquisition and the storage of the vaccines in Africa by the African nations. This cannot be achieved in Africa without putting emphasis on STI, and particularly on health research and related capacity building. Indeed, the current approved COVID vaccines are from countries that are also among the world top 10 in R&D spending. We need to put our money where we want to eat. Countries such as the USA, the UK, Germany, China, taken together, have spent an average of more than 2% of their respective gigantic GDP on R&D, compared to the average of just 0.4% GDP expenditure in Africa, and the target of 1% GDP on R&D set by the African heads of state and governments. We need to walk the talk. We need to go beyond rhetorics. In terms of number of researchers and research personnel, Africa is significantly below the world average. The points above speak directly to the CARTA's mission, which is, I quote, to build high-level capacity for population and public health-related research in Africa, and to the Agenda 2063 aspiration, a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, translating inter alia to African people with high standard of living and quality of life, sound health, and knowledge society driven by well-educated and skilled Africans. The African Union Commission, through its HRST department, is eager to build and to strengthen partnership with CARTA to address the training and retention of the current and next generations of African scientists. The question is, how do we activate STI as a catalyst, having listened to all the strategies and policies put in place? Number one, we start from the very beginning. By building the requisite human resources, STEM should begin at the early child education to tertiary level. We must review our curriculum and make science sexy for the pupils and students. Secondly, we must upscale STI centers for excellence if they exist in the various places that we find ourselves. Thirdly, we should be able to invest more in STI and R&D, hearing from what we've said about the countries I mentioned, USA, the UK, the Germany, China, having more than 2% of their respective gigantic GDP on R&D. So we should be able to invest more in STI and R&D where the political will has a vision of sustainable development. They will put the necessary finances and infrastructures as well as needed human resources in place. Therefore, our government policy, political people should make sure that they actually put money into R&D. Fourthly, member states must subscribe, implement, and achieve the 1% of GDP target agreed by AU member states as desired minimum expenditure on R&D. The recent statistics from UNESCO and Addis show that the current level of investment in R&D by Africa as a continent, of which more than half is internationally funded, puts Africa at a strategic disadvantage. Fifthly, investment in education, technical competencies and training, and in science, technology, research, and innovation should be top on the list of actions to take in order to deliver a world-class graduates. Sixthly, communication and outreach on STI are important to secure necessary political buy-in at government level, raise wider public awareness at grassroots level, and garner support from all stakeholders. 7, we must mobilize and widen the involvement of relevant segments of our population, private sector, civil society, parliamentarians, and the diaspora to participate in Africa Science and Technology Program, in line with our concept of Ubuntu, I am because we are. 8, Improve STI readiness in Africa in terms of infrastructure, professional and technical competence, and entrepreneurial capacity. 9, invigorate partnership and cooperation with private sector. STI must contribute further in the fast development of the local industry in Africa. 10, mobilization of domestic excellence and financial resources and leveraging on external support and collaboration is vital for the successful implementation of Cesar 2024. 11, strategic partnerships and collaboration at the bilateral and multilateral levels are essential for jointly solving global challenges. We have to forge strong partnerships driven by our shared values and policy objectives and deliver impact on the ground. 12, it is important that national and regional policies incorporate a continental perspective to achieve the priorities of Cesar 2024. 13, the offices, institutions created to implement Cesar progress must be monitored closely to ensure the future success of Cesar 2024 and by implication, Agenda 2063. 14, one objective lacking in progress is the operationalization of the Pan-African Intellectual Property Organization, with a consequent lack of activity in the critical area of intellectual property management and technology transfer. 15, the various offices I mentioned before, AUSTI, ASRIC, and NEPAD agency should upscale the harmonized mechanism that will support member states and RECs to collect standardized data and report on performance periodically. Distinguished faculty, partners of CARTA institutions, esteemed STI stakeholders across the globe, distinguished participants. This is a time where Africa needs more from us. The slogan of the African Union has never been so appropriate. African solutions to African problems. Solutions to African problems should be found in Africa by Africans and friends of Africa. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Are we going to pay lip service and become cemeteries of webinars and seminars? Will the government do the needful to empower African scientists and researchers to bring their innovations to the doorstep of the people we so cherish? We must have a synergy for all the stakeholders. There must be increased collaboration between government, authorities, policymakers, the academia, and the private or industrial sector so that innovation can move from the research table to the industry and consequently become a finished product for the populace. If this is done, STI will become the catalyst for the development of the Africa we want, that Africa dream. There must be synergy between government, academia, and industry. The Cesar 2024 strategy, and therefore, by extension, the Pan-African Agenda 2063, recognize that African higher education institutions are critical drivers of economic growth and development on the continent. Under their research and human capital development ambit, African universities are at the core of national science and innovation systems, and they contribute to key functions of knowledge generation and its effective utilization. That is a statement from Real Forum in 2016. A key driver of Africa's prosperity will be its getting an efficient, qualified workforce. And that is through human development, which is also through quality education and healthy services. The mission of the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa 2024 is to accelerate Africa's transition to an innovation-led, knowledge-based economy. The third stage of development outlined above. Science, technology, and innovation will deliver Agenda 2063 if a holistic approach is utilized. All hands must be on deck from national level to regional level, through the regional economic communities and the continental level where we seek to do advocacy, as well as partners outside Africa. Open science must be adopted across regions and continents. As STI apply to all domains of life and development, the points above also tell us that nations that will experience the next economic surge are nations that are currently at the forefront in STI, particularly nations thriving in frontier technologies. Are the African nations there yet? The answer is no, obviously. However, the examples of China and Korea that have joined the STI frontrunners in a very short period of time by the judicious applications of STI for industrialization are good examples for Africa to adapt to the African context for an STI-based development, significantly to achieve radical transformation as envisaged in the Agenda 2063. STI, R&D are the golden keys. We need to work cross-sectorally to improve the link between education, research, and industry. Furthermore, there is need for a strengthened engagement with African Union member states, UN agencies, and the private sector, and devise innovative ways of mobilizing African domestic resources, international resource to achieve the African dream. Like I said at the beginning, I am a scientist from the Faculty of Arts and Letters. I do not know if I've done justice to this topic, but I've done my very best. Sincere gratitude to the Consortium for Advanced Research Training in Africa and the University of Ibadan for inviting me to this joint Advanced Seminar 3 8 public lecture, and for me to deliver the lecture on the theme, Science, Technology, and Innovation, the catalyst for development of the Africa we want. The onus is on us. The onus is on you. The onus is on me. Together, we can forge the Africa we want. Together, we can bridge the connectivity divide, bridge the digital divide, and be able to give to our people what they really want. It is for us in this field of academia, we the researchers, we the scientists, not to sleep and not to get disappointed even when the government is acting up. It is for the government to wake up and listen to the wake-up call, because now there is a clarion call. If we do not develop our own infrastructures, if we do not put even the 1% GDP that we say should be put by the African head of states, they took the decisions and they must be able to put it in place. When there will be another pandemic and the world close their borders, where do we go to get our own vaccines? Where do we go to get our own medications? Science, technology, innovation is the catalyst for the development of the Africa we want as steeped in Agenda 2063. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. That was a great lecture. And I don't think that opinion is mine alone, because I've been looking at some of the comments that have been made by those who are attending. I want to acknowledge all the CARTA fellows from the various cohorts that are present at this lecture, and many CARTA alumni as well. Thank you very much for showing up. I want to especially acknowledge the director of the Pan-African University Life and Earth Sciences Institute, which is based at the University of Ibadan, because I noticed that she signed into this lecture. This has been a great lecture. I want to share my screen briefly, just to show some of the notes that I took as the lecture was being delivered by our distinguished lecturer. And she laid emphasis on Cesar 2024, the 10-year science, technology, an innovation strategy for Africa, which was agreed upon by the political leaders on the continent some 7 years ago. I hope we are very much on the way to implementing Cesar 2024, because it's an important milestone on the path of Agenda 2063, which the African Union has adopted as a developmental framework for the continent. 2063 marking the centenary of the formation of the Organization of African Union that eventually transmuted into the African Union. And the Cesar 24, as it relates to the African Union vision, includes eradication of hunger and achieving food security, prevention and control of diseases, communication, protection of our space, living together, building our societies, and wealth creation so that we can move our people out of poverty. I'm just trying to highlight some of the points that our lecturer had mentioned to us in the course of our eloquent lecture. And the reinforcing pillars, building or upgrading research infrastructures, enhancing professional and technical competencies, promoting entrepreneurship and innovation, and then providing an enabling environment for science, technology, and innovation development in the African continent. And the way forward, key items, new partnerships and synergies, investment in research and development, protection of intellectual property, an emphasis on science, technology, and innovation to promote health and to prevent disease in Africa, which is of particular importance to us in CARTA because our main focus is on population and public health. And science, technology, and innovation can serve as a catalyst for development. And our lecturer highlighted so many ways in which that can happen. Investment in human resources in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, upscaling STI centers of excellence, and then devoting a minimum percentage of the national gross domestic product towards research and development. That's what happens in those countries that have developed. And if we want to develop, we need to do that as well. Then the importance of strategic partnerships, both at bilateral and multilateral levels. And she ended by emphasizing the need to devise African solutions to African problems, which is the African Union slogan. So you'll all agree with me, we've had a wonderful lecture this afternoon. We have a few minutes, and I'm sure Her Excellency will be willing to take some questions. There is already one question on the question and answer panel, and we will start with that. And I want to urge others who have questions to please post their questions onto the question and answer panel, and our distinguished lecturer will be able to take those questions. Do I leave you to read the question and then tackle it, a distinguished lecturer? Are you able to see the question and answer panel? So, or maybe I can read it and then you can address it. Have you been able to see it? There's just one question there. I will read it. Thank you for your inspiring lecture. The efforts of the African Union STI agenda are impressive. Obviously, many distinguished African scientists must have invested time and effort to develop these agenda and strategic documents. What efforts are in place or being made to promote diffusion of these initiatives to different levels of governance, education, and implementation in Africa? How many policymakers and leaders in the public space are familiar with these lofty ideals? How does this great idea become a shared vision amongst Africans, such that this does not remain a discourse at the top echelon of science, technology, and governance alone. So, Your Excellency, it's a very long question. It's from one of the CARTA alumni, Dr.
Okay.
I hope you can just go ahead and
I
take
will
that.
start by saying to the CARTA alumnus, thank you very much for this question. The question actually covers a lot parts of what we do at the African Union. Now, yes, I will stay with you that many distinguished African scientists spent time and effort, sacrificed time and effort to develop this agenda and strategic documents. We call them the documents of the continent because ownership is by the continent themselves. The African Union is the conglomeration of 55 African Union member states. These African head of states come and sit together. They come with their experts, and most often their experts are the ministers of education, science, and technology. Like if you heard me, there was the association where they created for just science, technology, innovation in Africa when I started my lecture. And the participants are experts from the various ministries in the various member states. They are the ones that come with the ideas. And this has translated from to what we call the STCs, the Specialized Technical Committees. And for my department, I have the Specialized Technical Committee on Education, Science, and Technology. This is a ministerial committee. It means that the ministers of education of the African Union member states, the ministers of science, technology, innovation, the ministers of research are the owners of this meeting. We at the African Union Commission, we act only as their secretariat. Now, when they come in as their experts, they bring out the different problems. And in bringing out the problems, they come also with proffering solutions. So these documents, these things I'm reading, they are not lofty ideas. They are decisions by the African Union member states. They come and sit in this STC, ESC. They take these discussions with us and they know what they want. It is for, and then when they finish the discussions, it is made into a template by the renowned African scientists. And it is for them to go back and implement it in their national policies and strategies. Because implementation takes place at the state level. The African Union Commission is a secretariat. We do no implementation, but we remind them, you took this decision in the assembly decision of this. You took the decision in the executive decision of this. So please implement it. Now, the question again is that what efforts are put in place or being made to promote diffusion of these initiatives to different levels of governance, education, and implementation in Africa? These SCCs are owned by your ministers of education, your ministers of scientific research. And before we hold any SCC, there's an expert meeting. And the experts come from those different ministries to come and sit in these meetings. So it is not hidden. It is not, they are not lofty ideas. They've existed. It's a decision that they come together, they struck a compromise and decided on these issues. How does this great idea become a shared vision among Africans so that this does not remain a discourse on the top echelon of science, technology, and governance? This is a very important question. And I agree with you that it sounds lofty, but it's not supposed to be lofty. It sounds as if we do not, that it is new. It is not new. This is not new. This is a 10-year plan. And already 2024, we are ending it. And that means we've already gone 7 years on this. It's supposed to have been implemented. The question or the need that we need to do is that government policies should not only be government policies. Government policies should be like a tripartite action, a decision between the government, the stakeholders, whether it is education, science, technology, the academia, and the industry that have to translate this into finished products. Government should send sensitization to the different people when they come for these meetings. They should go back and diffuse it, because what exists in some countries, you have the headquarters. Every headquarters have a state level of that ministry. It should go to that state level. If you go to that state level, there's a division. It should go there. They should hold conventions. They should hold meetings where they speak about this and educate them. But the people who take the decision should implement these decisions. They should implement these strategies and efforts in the various decisions they take. When it's agriculture, there's an agricultural continental decision. When it comes to health, there's a continental health decision. When it comes to science, technology, innovation, there is. And then we've also even promoted by having the champions of 10 head of states, 2 per region, who are supposed to champion education, science, technology, innovation in the continent. But the question is, or the problem that I see is, there is a kind of a complacent manner in which we implement. It's like we are not moved. And forever, I will keep on thanking COVID. Because COVID has come to tell us that the things that we are chasing are not really very important. But what we need to do is to invest on STI that can change the life of people. There is a negative aspect of COVID, but there's also a positive aspect of COVID. We cannot sit on our reins. It is high time we started implementing and then owning our programs, because what we do is that we keep on saying we don't have money. And the question I keep asking, each time that ministries go to defend their budget, what are they defending? What is that budget for? What are they going to implement? Why do we keep on speaking about we don't have money, we don't have money? What have we done with the money that we have until people have to come from outside to assist us? Life, the value of life is the same, whether you are rich or poor. And to get the value of life is to also invest in science, technology, and innovation. When COVID came, borders were locked. We have to depend on our own food security. We have to depend on our own health infrastructure. We saw how many other countries galvanized to start producing masks and making local ventilators in order to help. We saw people resorting to African pharmacopoeia. But even with that, right now as we speak, why is it that 1% GDP cannot be put in place, which is a decision of the head of states themselves? Why can't they put that 1% GDP on research? Because the countries that we are looking up to, asking for vaccines, they put more than 2% GDP. And that is why they could accelerate and fast track the production of these vaccines. So the onus is on us. Every one of us will have a responsibility. But I believe that the greater responsibility is on the government. Provide the infrastructure, put down the finances. We have brains in Africa. Those brains are being utilized out of Africa. I don't like speaking about brain drain. I want to talk about the brain gain. Because as they have gone to acquire knowledge outside, they can bring it here and work. But do we have a conducive environment that these scientists will thrive in? That is the question. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Your Excellency. There are quite a number of questions, so you may have to abbreviate your responses to some of these questions. Let me throw one at you from a former chairman of our board of management in CARTA, Professor Nangulu from Kenya. And she asks, what monitoring strategies have African member states put in place in the implementation of STI in state operations? What monitoring strategies have African member states put in place in the implementation of STI in state operations?
Thank you very much. Like I said, implementation takes place at the level of the state. But again, we have the African Observatory for Science, Technology, Innovation, which is hosted by Equatorial Guinea. And that is the job of AUSTI, to monitor and evaluate the various strategies that we need to put in place to make sure that STI is being done. But you know, in as much as we speak, every country has sovereignty. You can speak. It's just like that proverb we say, you can force a horse to the river, but you cannot force a horse to drink water. There must be ownership. There must be a political vision that looks to the consolidation of STI. If there's no political vision, then there can be no drive that will move even the agenda of STI in the various states that we're talking about. So even when we put people as ministers of health, as ministers of science and technology, they should not just be political appointees. They should also be technocrats, people who know the subject, so that they can drive the vision and drive it forward to what they need to do. So we have the STRC, the Scientific Technical Research Council, hosted in Abuja. We have, I mentioned some of these bodies when I was speaking at the beginning. that the African Union put in place for the Africa we want, knowing fully well the importance of what we need to do. I spoke about African Scientific Research and Innovation Council, the African Observatory for Science, Technology and Innovation, the Pan-African Intellectual Property Organization, which is yet to go into force, the Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework, the African Center for Disease Control, then the Committee of 10 Heads of States and Government, Championing Education, Science and Technology, the African Virtual and E-Learning University, and the Pan-African Private Sector. And recently in 2020, the strategy, the digital strategy for the transformation of Africa was put in place, because now the world is going E, and all of us are looking towards digitalization and technology.
Okay, so we may not be able to take all the questions, but there is one here about gender mainstreaming culture and national policies. Somebody is asking, how can we inculcate gender mainstreaming culture and national policies into your visions of your insightful lecture?
Thank you very much. The African Union Commission, already we speak about gender parity. For example, the commission is made up of 10 people leading the commission, 5 male, 5 female. Now it's going, in the new reform, it's going to be 8 people, and they're going to be 4 male, 4 female. That is one. There is a decision by the African Head of State and Executive Council that gender mainstreaming should take place. Then we have the Directorate for Gender and Youth that looks into this. We also have the African Union International Center for the Education of Female and Girls, the AUCFA. They are already functioning and making sure that we have gender mainstreaming. And then when you come to the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, Cesar 2016-2025, one of the clusters that we have speaks to this gender mainstreaming, particularly because the domestication of girls, as I will put it, or the gender mainstreaming in the patriarchal system kind of does not give room for the girl child to go into certain subjects. But now, from what we call the early childhood education cluster, development cluster, we are saying that all kids should be exposed to STEM subjects, because the future is STEM. The future is in technology. The future is in digitalization. The future of work is going to be technology and digitalization. So there is need for us to make our kids start from the very beginning, to start inculcating the culture of science, to be able to get interested in courses like physics, chemistry, biology, in courses that mathematics, etc., that will lead them into that. So there are different structures already put in place. We are aware in the African Union Commission and the Africa, you know, when I keep on saying the African Union Commission, it's not as if it is one abstract body. It's not an abstract body. This African Union Commission where we serve, we are your secretariat. But the people who instruct us are the member states, your different member states. Those 55 member states, they take every decision. They decide on those decisions, and then they accept it. Then they bring out a decision on it, an executive council decision, which is the conglomeration of ministers of foreign affairs, or they come up with an assembly decision, which is that of the head of state. But they themselves in their person do not make it. It is their experts on gender, their experts on education, their experts on science who come and write out all those things. They will not present to them. So there is much effort going on. It's taking a long train, but I believe that when we move words into actions, change can come in. I believe that we need to change our mentality. There needs to be a paradigm shift. It is not often money that is important. It is the ideas that are very important. Because if you have the ideas,
thank you very much, Your Excellency. There is one question from Cameroon that I want you to take before we wrap up.
Okay.
And that's from being a Pan-African and particularly from Cameroon, where I am, do you think there is something you can do to help us convince the public education institutions to integrate tech entrepreneurship in our education? That question is from Cameroon.
Yes, we've already worked on this. That technical, the specialized technical committee on education, science, and technology, we meet with all experts from all over, and we have the continental TVET strategy. That continental TVET strategy is the right way to go now, because we have graduates who don't have jobs, but because they don't have competencies, they don't have skills. Now, that tech entrepreneurship is very, very important. And that is why we also have a program we call the African Innovation African Innovation Education Expo, where we give money to those who are tech and that they can give us technologies that can enhance teaching, etc. We go right up to giving $100,000 to the first participant, to the first person who wins the prize. So already we are meeting with all these ministers. And even as a Cameroonian, I have met with all your ministers, the Minister of Secondary Education, the Minister of Basic Education, the Minister of Higher Education, and the Minister of TVET. I have met with them even just last year to take these various policies and strategies to them. And I remember that His Excellency Shiroma said, "L'avenir, c'est dans la formation," meaning that the future is in training, is in competencies and all that. And that is under tech entrepreneurship. You know, the question on tech entrepreneurship will also take us to different kinds of entrepreneurship, like agripreneurship, etc. We need to invest in this, but to invest in this is to have money. And where do you get money? If you go to the bank as a young person, how do you get the money? They will tell you to bring collateral. Where will you get collateral? That is why the African Union Development Agency, under the Skills Initiative for Africa, we've already worked on it, is going to come up with lump sums that they can give to youth who write their projects and forward to them. Then they stand as collateral for the youth to get money in those banks like Afrexim Bank.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we more or less have run out of time. There are so many questions there. We may have to crave the indulgence of Her Excellency to help us pen answers to those questions, and we will paste it on the consortium website.
Okay.
So that people can get answers to their questions. But at this point, we will have to, I want to call on one of the coordinators of JAS 3, that's Professor Ladapo Layemi, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Standing on the existing protocol, it is my great pleasure to give this vote of thanks on behalf of CARTA and the organizers of this program. And I must also mention that I'm a proud alumnus of the University of Ibadan. So, Your Excellency, thank you very much for giving this lecture. I'm sure we all had a great time listening to the 8th lecture of this series of public lectures. These lectures are given at the end of our joint advanced seminar 3. To the best of my knowledge, I think this is the first one that we're giving totally virtually. I stand to be corrected. So I want to thank Her Excellency, Professor Sarah Anyang Agbor, for the excellent, passionate, inspiring, and thought-provoking lecture. Professor Mbona already summarized a lot of things she said, but I have a few things that I need to quote. The one that struck me the most, or when you said the vision for African development places science and technology at the epicenter of the socio-economic development of Africa. That is a deep statement, and I want to thank you for this inspiring lecture. I'm sure everyone here has been inspired, and our hopes for African development has been ignited. She made a few recommendations at the end of it. The one that struck me the most also is about the putting our money where our mouth is. I pray and I hope that our leaders will listen to this. I want to express my gratitude to the CARTA leadership, especially those who organized this program. And I thank them for the vision of CARTA, which keys in perfectly with this development strategy for Africa, especially for the excellent organization of the public lecture. I must thank the program officers and staff of APRC for working tirelessly to make this a great success. I looked at the list of attendees and I'm very, very overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. But among them, I found former fellows and alumni of CARTA, current fellows and alumni of CARTA, participants from partner institutions of CARTA, and director of policy, my own boss, officials of the African Union and the Pan-African University, no doubt part of the entourage of Her Excellency, and then attendees from outside this country. I thank you all for taking time and honoring an invitation to join this lecture and making this feast of knowledge and inspiration a success. I look forward to the next series of this lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the CARTA public lecture for this year is now over, and we will be closing the meeting. Everybody, we say thank you as the vote of thanks as eloquently stated. So thank you all very much. We look forward to your responding when we call upon you in the future. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.